I'm wearing my Vision Zero helmet for this meeting. I want
That's prudent of you.
Yes, absolutely. I proudly wear it.
Hang on.
It's going to be a bumpy ride, is it?
Oh my, look what just started,
Oh,
Doug.
we get some more helmets. Okay. Well, safety equipment it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I've started the YouTube and I'm going to start record, okay?
Great.
Thanks.
Why don't we get started, everyone? Oh.
That's
Everyone,
why.
welcome to the October Transportation Committee meeting of Manhattan Community Board 7. And just to expedite things, maybe we could do number 2 because I expect it will go in a very short time. The 2642 Broadway third renewal application for the TLC. Can we just, does anyone have an objection to, I know there's someone.
Howard, I think we ought to get a note taker first.
Okay.
Could somebody please volunteer to do the minutes? It should be a relatively easy one. Someone who hasn't done it, it would be wonderful.
I've done them, but I'll do them again.
You have done them, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
Somebody else wants to volunteer. That's fine.
A torrent of volunteers.
I can't, I promise I will do it, but I can't do it this week.
Okay. You can't do it next week either because we don't have transportation, Doug.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, I just want to ask if there's any way, Christian, if you could give me the opportunity to record it, it would be easier to get accurate minutes. If you can't, then that's okay.
I mean, it is being recorded, Barbara.
Oh, I know. It's just easier when you don't have to do it through YouTube, but okay.
Okay, is someone here from the for the renewal? I thought I saw someone check in. That's why I think you have to
This is for 2462 Broadway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Okay, then so much for my bringing them first. Why don't we then go to the item that is in fact first on the agenda, which
I'm not sure that our speaker is here. I told him 6:45.
Excuse me, Howard and Andrew, in the chat, there's a man, John R. Mazzia, is here from Two-Way Black Car Radio. Is that the one you're looking at?
Yes, that's the one.
That's in the chat. So,
yeah, if he could unmute himself so we could speak to him, that would be wonderful.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I didn't want feedback.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
You're looking for renewal of your radio cars? For your radio cars?
Yeah, the livery base.
We always ask, have there been any complaints? Is there anyone here to speak against this?
And we also ask, have there been any changes to the service?
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, did you hear our questions?
No, I didn't hear your question.
Okay, we asked, have there been any complaints? Is there anyone here to speak against it? Have there been any changes to the service since your last renewal?
No complaints, no judgments, no violations. It's been very quiet since our last renewal, mostly due to COVID-19 and nobody's really traveling as they used to. And no material changes, still the same off-street parking affiliation. We posted all our notices. I sent in the copies of the postings to Jessie earlier this morning. I think she said she would provide them to the meeting as a PDF file.
Okay, any comments? Should we call the question? Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor of the renewal?
Are we doing electronic as well?
Yeah, well, I don't think you and I can vote. Oh, we can raise hand. Okay, everyone in favor, raise their hands. what do we have? We have 9 committee members in favor. You could all lower your hands now.
I see
Any-
10. I see 10.
Oh, I see. Okay. Anyone voting, anyone on the committee opposed, not voting, abstaining? I don't think there is anyone left. Okay,
Looks pretty.
non-committee members in favor of the renewal. Raise your hands electronically if you can. I see 7, Andrew, 8. Jay, you're on the, 6.
These are
Is that what-
opposed?
No, these are people who are not committee members voting in favor.
I see. Okay.
It's 6. Okay. Anyone not on the committee voting, abstaining, voting against? Okay. So we're set with that item. Thank you. Congratulations on your recommending your renewal.
Thanks. I'll see you all at the full board meeting, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thanks for
was-
your time. Stay safe, stay well, everyone.
That was
You too.
10600, is that right?
Yeah, 10-000-6000.
Fine.
Okay, we can move on to number 3 while we're waiting for.
Let me just ask Mark Holmes. Do you know
Andrew.
when
Andrew,
Mark,
I
do you know
can.
when Frank is
Andrew,
due about 6:45 or?
Hi, Andrew. It's Frank. I've been on. I'm
Oh,
here.
you've been on.
Frank is on.
Wonderful.
Well, then you're set.
Perfect.
Let's, you're
I
up.
didn't realize that. So let me introduce Frank Anacaro, acting president of MTA Bus and acting senior VP of New York City Transit Bus. I was fortunate enough to be at a press conference recently in the Bronx where several new exciting bus initiatives were announced. Frank will take you through them. Some of them are more transit signal prioritization, all-door boarding on selected routes, the return of borough bus redesign meetings, more enforcement of bus lanes, more cameras, everything. So Frank used to be with bus maintenance. He knows this. Bless you. He knows the topic really well, and Frank has several of his staff here with us as well. So Frank, welcome and thank you so much for coming.
Andrew, thank you very much for inviting me. I hope you don't mind. I brought some of my
How
staff.
do I get audio on my meeting?
We need to mute you, Paul. Let's see.
We'll give Paul a minute.
It says mute, or is that what it's?
I'm a co-host. I should be able to do this. Let's see.
Just go over to his.
If what?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working.
Mute. Think I did it. Sorry, Frank.
No problem.
Pictures there, they said unmute.
No, I guess I didn't do it. What? Why isn't this working?
No, he just unmuted himself.
He keeps unmuting himself because he seems like he's muting himself.
Yeah, it says stop video and mute.
I don't know who he's talking
Don't
to.
do-
but we have to
don't-
stop this.
Don't do anything else, Paul. You're muted right now.
Are we okay now? Okay. Sorry, Frank.
No problem. So again, thank you, Andrew. I hope you don't mind. I have some of my staff on to,
No,
help
that's great.
Howard Levine is on from our group. He was going to present a very brief slide deck for us. Howard, are you able to present that for us so I could speak through it?
I'm here, Frank, and I'm just waiting to get access to share my screen, if I can have that. from the
Let me
host.
see if I can do that.
Easiest
Howard.
thing is to make him a co-host.
Perfect, I've got it now.
I
You
did
got
it for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can folks see that?
Yeah, looks good. Thank you. So in addition to Howard, we have Safira Latif, our EVP here. We have Devon Rogers. We have Mark Holmes. He's with our bus command center. We have Buckley Young with Ops Planning. So, I asked them to join us. But, thanks again, Andrew. Thanks for allowing me to present to the Community Board 7.
Oh, thank you for doing it.
Yep.
So I'm sure many of you don't know me. My name's Frank Anacaro. I'm the acting senior vice president for the Department of Buses and acting president for MTA Bus Company. I've been around for a while. I've been in transportation over 30 years. And most recently 18 years with New York City Transit. And recently I was appointed to this position, acting position, as Craig Cipriano was put in as interim president in New York City Transit. I worked a lot of years with Craig. We worked together during the toughest time, as you know, these toughest times for buses. And I'm personally focused on progressing, the good work that we've done in buses for the last several years and fully engaged. And of course, I'm looking forward to working with the communities and, community boards like yourself. So thank you. Next slide, please. So tonight, I just want to go through some of the items Andrew had mentioned, right, are on the forefront of our bus operations. Our preparations for fall ridership returns, our details of our joint bus improvement announcement that Andrew mentioned back in August with DOT. And then finally, I'll provide an update on our zero emissions fleet program. So after staying around 50% of pre-COVID levels, ridership for about 9 months, we saw ridership gradually increase to about 60%. And we anticipated as the fall came back in that we would see people coming back to work, children going back to school, and our suspicions were right. Over the past couple of weeks, we saw an additional increase to bring us to about 2/3 of our pre-COVID ridership levels. And we anticipated it, and we had some challenges ahead to prepare for this. So our team was fully engaged, put a lot of effort gearing up for this. Was a big push on many fronts, and most notably is that a big challenge we had was bus operators. We had a low availability of bus operators because during the pandemic we slowed our hiring. So through attrition, we lost a lot of bus operators. So we had to quickly react, expand our training programs, increase our throughput there, going from 60 bus operators in a class to over 100 bus operators per class, and working harder to get more candidates in the pipeline. And we've been able to, as a result, reinstate full service as of September 6th. So, and our service management team, is facing challenges, but they're nimble and they're out there and responsive. So, next slide, please. So our mission and DOT's mission is to vastly improve our customer experience and to increase ridership. This means cutting commute times, sharing real-time information with our customers, and using every tool at our disposal. And we'll go into each of the categories of the improvements in the upcoming slides. And you may know that gentleman back there in the yellow tie. I'm not sure I recognize him.
It was a warm day.
So, next slide, please. All right, so priority one is to adding and improving existing bus lanes and busways. It's clear that the most effective way to increase speeds on our bus network is to implement bus lanes and busways. And a good example is the M14, as travel times improved by 34%, 36% when we implemented the M14 busway, and it also increased ridership by 24%. So these busways are paramount to providing excellent service. Now, DOT has committed to add and improve up to 20 miles in bus lanes, including 5 new busways. There'll be major construction on continuation on our recent some of our big wins in 21. We have 2 new busways that have already opened: Main Street in Flushing and 181st Street in Upper Manhattan, that services a lot of the Bronx routes. And construction has begun in the Jamaica Archway busway, and is expected to begin soon on the 5th Avenue in Midtown. With those two completed, that would make 4 new busways in 21 alone, which is a really big accomplishment. And there are also new bus lanes recently opened, one in Battery Park Place, and that helps many of the express buses traverse through the HLC tunnel, Ucari Tunnel. And construction is also underway on University Ave, the Story Ave, and will start soon in the Pelham Bay Park and Avenues A and D later this fall.
Hey, Frank?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but on this slide, you notice that Jamaica and Archer are missing the word avenues, whereas all the other ones have the street name.
If anyone was going to catch it, it would be you, Andrew. Thank you.
Sure.
I was hopeful they spelled Jamaica correct, though.
They did.
Unlike some other streets we have.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So, and we need to make sure that busways and bus lanes are well enforced. The MTA is working with the city to install hundreds of new cameras on board buses and at fixed locations and key corridors to reduce the amount of illegally parked cars in our bus lanes. MTA portion of this is to expand our onboard cameras by adding 300 in 2022 and then at least 600 more in 23. And DOT will add 15 new corridors in 2022 on top of the more than 150 existing locations that they have the fixed cameras. And right now we have our bus camera program consists of 7 routes and 123 buses equipped. And we're in negotiation with the vendors now, so we could hope to expand in early 22 to begin implementing some of these. And then the following year, we'll implement the larger expansion. And this will be paramount to help keeping these lanes open. Next slide, please. Another key tool for increasing the speeds in our busways is transit signal priority. All right. And this basically so that our buses have the right of way in the intersection. They spend less time at red lights. The joint commitment with New York City DOT includes expansion of up to 750 additional intersections. And this would make the 2022 the largest ever for
Frank, just so you know, we have submitted a request to DOT years ago and to transit. We have at least 10 locations and the buses that would be affected where we believe it will really speed up bus service, but we haven't been able to get them implemented yet. I'm happy to send you the list later on.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, Andrew. Please send it.
Sure.
Yep. We had a big push in 2020 as part of the DOT's Better Buses Restart. And if we work to maintain a momentum with another big year in 21, we've already accomplished 500 intersections this year and we still have a quarter to go. So we're making some good ground, but Andrew, definitely send us that information.
I will. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So we're excited to revive our borough by borough bus network redesign, starting with the Bronx this fall. You know, we had a pause due to COVID. We recently met with the Bronx Borough President to share our updated Bronx plan, and reception was very good. We've received some input, and we'll full steam ahead to implementation of the Bronx redesign next summer. Queens was the next furthest along, and before the pandemic, and we expect to restart public outreach on that project in the not too distant future. Manhattan will follow the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, and we're really looking forward to working with the communities and you all folks and getting this and planning for this. Next slide, please. And we're not losing sight of to expand accessibility, that's for sure, in the bus system. So every New Yorker could take advantage of the revival in New York City. DOT has committed to making accessibility improvements on 25 stops across the city. And in addition, in the MTA, we're currently rolling out over the next between 21 and 22, 800 new buses that have they have the wider doors and more flexible seating opportunities. And we've been getting really good response with these with the community. So looking forward to deploying those. Additionally, we're looking to leverage our Omni contactless fare payment system with an all-door boarding pilot on select routes. right now, all 5,800 buses are equipped with the Omni system. And we expect to expand all-door system system-wide in 2023 when we retire the MetroCard. So we're making progress, on all-door boarding. It'll be a big improvement. We committed to launch this 10 local route pilot, providing a benefit to riders in advance of the full system implementation. And we'll learn a lot of lessons through that. And then, as I said, we expect to go full expansion in 23. We're still selecting locations, and what we believe we could reach some excellent high ridership routes where all-door boarding can really be impactful. The system will work with the Omni readers and be able to use, customers will be able to use any door, right? All-door boarding, and MetroCard users and cash users will still be able to use the front door during this pilot. And we'll also have we're going to make sure we message it, robust signage and marketing campaign to encourage the use. And additionally, we have some scheduled improvements on some of our other bus routes. We committed to 15 routes to just general schedule improvements. Next slide, please. And we're going to give riders more information than ever. We're adding additional 1,000 digital information screens on our buses, and in between 21 and 22. And this is in addition to our existing fleet of over 2,900 equipped with digital information screens. And as well, DOT will be improving real-time signs at their bus stops. And they currently have in the midst of an RFP and with a new design for these signs, but we expect this new design will be solar and they will be cheaper to install. Next slide, please. So, in general, this summarizes it. Our mission, both, MTAs and DOT join us to vastly improve our customers' experience and to increase ridership. This means cutting commute times, sharing real-time information, and using every tool at our disposal to do so. So we're excited, and we're ready to go. So, next slide. And then finally, an update on our zero emissions fleet program. So since we spoke, recently, we've publicized that we have a couple updates. In March, we did mention that our 10 bus pilot is wrapping up. And since then, 5 of the buses, the ones that were made by New Flyer that were operating in Manhattan, ended their 3-year pilot and they were returned to the vendor. And we're coming up to the end of the other 5 Proterra buses that are operating in Brooklyn and Queens. They have their last day at the end of this year. And since then we originally planned on 45 all-electric local 40-foot buses. We've increased that to 60. The procurement is ongoing and we expect to award it by the year end. And then the first buses should arrive at the end of 22 into 23. And these 60 buses will be deployed throughout all 5 boroughs. And similarly, to support this, we have our first partnership with NYPA, New York Power Authority, to install charging infrastructure to support these. And that's, we're making very good progress with this. And this is a really good learning lesson for, future expansion. We remain fully committed to zero emissions by 2040. And we expect more purchases in the next few years as we look forward to bringing on the 500 that are planned in our 20 to 24 capital program. So it's very exciting. Welcome to the future. And that concludes our brief presentation. I'll open up for any questions that anybody may have. And
thank you so much. Great stuff in there. Anyone have any questions? Maybe we need to take the presentation off so I can, okay. Great. Does anyone have any questions for Frank on the bus initiatives? We've already seen some of the all-electric buses in our area. I believe the M86 SBS has them, among others. So, and maybe some of the 7s and the 11s we've seen all-electric. So they're coming along.
Yeah, you'll see them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. No questions. Otherwise, we'll let these.
Andrew, there are no raised
there are all
hands.
kinds of hands up.
We have 4 hands raised. 5.
Oh, okay.
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 5, 6.
Okay, Natasha.
Yes.
How about committee members?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just did it in order. Let's see who's. Well, I guess Roberta is the first committee member with the hand up.
Thank you so much. I think this is great. For seniors and people with disabilities and caregivers with small children, this is going to be a godsend to have the ability to access buses where not every subway is going to be handicap accessible. So I think this program is wonderful, and I just wanted to thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay, Jay Adolph, and then Barbara Adler.
Yeah, you mentioned early on in the presentation, the installation of cameras identifying an increased number of violations. And I was just wondering, when you talk about violations, are you talking about fare violations, mask violations?
Okay.
What is it that you're focused on, or what are you ranking in terms of identifying violations?
So let me be more specific. These cameras are deployed in our buses that operate in our busways and bus lanes. And what they are specifically doing, enforcing vehicles from not in our lanes, right? So
these are not internal.
No, we do have, they are not internal. We do have cameras in our buses and numerous buses of our buses. But, these specifically that I'm speaking to, the expansion of 300 next year, are for the bus lanes, to enforce the bus lanes.
My second question, at the risk of being parochial, my concern is always with the M104. Is anything being done to improve the frequency of service on that line, which is obviously a major artery in our district?
So that's why I asked some of our specialists to join. So I'm going to turn it over to Buckley Young to see if he has an answer for that. If not, he could certainly be the one who would take the lead to consider that. Buckley, are you available to answer?
Sure. Hi, I'm Buckley. Nice to see everyone. Yes, we do monitor ridership on the routes on a regular basis. And at this point, we don't see that the M4 is needing increased service. However,
M104.
M104, yes, 104.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. However, we know that from time to time, there might be a backup in service, and that might cause a delay in service that will cause a certain point along the route to experience increased crowding. But that's just that happens on every route, unfortunately. But we will keep an eye on the M104, and we can report back to you if that changes.
Okay, so the answer to my question is, right now you're not doing anything particular to elevate the frequency of service on the M104.
But during our normal course of reviewing all the routes, it didn't appear to have anything that stood out. However, we'll go back to our bus schedulers and ask them to take another look at it based on your input today.
It may be anecdotal, but you can wait forever for that bus.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
And we also have Mark Holmes is on from our bus command center too. We'll take a look at it from our service delivery perspective.
Buses that are on routes that are frequently traffic loaded should get a special look, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah, and it may be, maybe it's recent too. We'll take a look at that route performance in general, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Barbara, and then Ken Coughlin.
Okay, thanks. This was a wonderful report. Thank you so much. It's all very exciting. 2 questions. I wondered when Omni will accept the senior Metro card.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I honestly.
It's later this year.
Oh, okay. All right.
prior to the end of the year.
And also, I've read numerous pieces that the proliferation of e-bikes and bikes has been cannibalizing public transportation. And I wondered, would you agree with that? And do you have any statistics on that?
I don't have any statistics that I can speak though. Anecdotally, it seems like they are impacting transportation overall. And, and also we're doing hazard assessments to make, because there's been a recent ask about bringing them on buses, and at this time they're not permitted, right? Because that's a whole different realm. But yeah, I don't have any statistics though to tell you really how if they've offset transportation or the usage of the transit.
Okay, thank you.
Ken?
Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing this with us. I had 4 questions. I hope that's not too many. I think some of them will be pretty quick. The first one is why wait until 2028 to start purchasing zero emissions buses exclusively? Why wait that long?
Okay, I'll start with that and then we'll get to the other thing. So this is a very nascent technology, right? There's a lot involved. They're getting the bus manufacturers into this realm. We have to do a lot of testing. There's a lot of infrastructure also that has to be dealt with here. So we're in the process of performing a master study, right? There's a huge power requirement that it's going to take. It's going to take a whole different change, a whole nexus in the way we operate. We have to look at our schedules too. Right now, the technology in batteries is such that I think it's around 68% of our routes could be operated with electric buses. The rest we couldn't operate electric buses on without either bringing them back to the depots and recharging them or sending another bus out, or installing very costly and very laborious infrastructure throughout the city. And I'm sure it's not something you could just put a charger up on a corner. It takes a lot of community development, a lot of input, and so it's a transformation. But 2028 is when we drew the line that's the last non-all electric bus would be purchased. Throughout the 2024 and the 24 to 28 capital program, there's I think it's a couple thousand included in those programs. So we're not just going to hit the switch and go from hybrid and diesel to all electric. But it's quite the undertaking. But we have a lot of wheels in motion.
Okay, and this 20 miles of busways, is that per year?
20 miles is, yes, that's for 2022. Yep, they committed for 2022. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And could you tell us what the process is between you and DOT? Do you ask for make a proposal for a dedicated bus lane or SBS, and then you run it by DOT, or do they make a proposal to you, or and what if DOT and you and MTA disagree?
So, I mean, I could tell you, we disagree all the time, right? But we usually find some, middle ground, and it's based on data, right? It's empirical information. So both, and I could let Buckley take this, but I could, or even Mark, but I could tell you, we both look at it from different perspectives. It's not only the Department of Buses or New York City Transit Operations Planning studying the, the busways or the streets, and to determine, the ridership levels, the traffic and all. DOT is also engaged looking at that. And then it becomes like a collaboration, a partnership. But one thing that is apparent that we are both committed, and we both understand that, without busways, just public transportation isn't sustainable. So we're committed to that. But perhaps Mark, if you want to give a little bit more detail on the interface with DOT and.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's exactly as you said, Frank, it's a collaborative process between us and DOT. We have that relationship. dating back to SBS. They are very, very key partner with us as far as our network redesigns are concerned. We share ideas. We are partners in lockstep with our Better Buses program. A lot of the ideas that are shared between the MTA and DOT are in lockstep with the goal of improving bus service. So while there may be some disagreements here or there are no prolonged head banging of ideas. We are, like I said, just not to make it sound all, pie in the sky, but we are really in lockstep with the goal of improving bus service all throughout the city. And we can't do that without, each other.
Does the MTA initiate the request for a busway?
It works two ways. I mean, in some cases, yes. And in other cases, DOT comes to us with ideas. But like I said, it's a back and forth thing. It's not one. If our road operations team, we have James Coyle on the line as well, who can speak to that. They would bring something to our attention, and then we would, elevate that up through our channels and involve DOT as well. And they can speak to that, and we'll work together to come up with a solution for a given problem. That's on the short term, and for long terms, we'll engage in studies with them, sit down, have several collaborative meetings with road operations, with operations planning, and with the DOT team as well, to come up with a solution that works best for everyone, and most importantly, benefits our riders.
Great.
Buckley or Jimmy Coyle, you guys can add anything to that?
Sure. Actually, the planners on both sides, on New York City Transit side and the DOT side, we look at the data from each perspective, and remarkably, we do come up very similar lists of potential routes. The same corridors pop up, and so it's not a surprise what the corridors are. There may be a change here or there at the edges, but it ends up being basically the same list. We were surprised to find that out. I think what drives DOT and us is that where is it? We done? We want to make sure that all the boroughs get covered. So we did one recently in the Bronx. We want to make sure we get Brooklyn covered. Just have some borough equity.
Great.
So.
Is that all of it, Ken, or do you have more?
I just had one quick question. What's the fine for a bus camera violation?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll be honest with you.
I think it's $50, but
I think it's 50 for the first violation. But
Yes.
let's get back to you on that.
Yeah, we'll get
Is
back.
it points on a license also, or is it like a speed camera?
No points.
Okay.
We've been trying to get the state legislature. The state legislature has to act to get more serious penalties, and we're working on that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Next question.
Doug.
Hi, thank you so much for being here, Frank, and your whole team. Let me just start off by saying that I love buses and taking them all my life. They are very practical for me, for my business. I need to see the streetscape, and some of you know that I work in that field. I have been here throughout the pandemic. I've been riding the buses nonstop. I did not left the city at all. And I sort of give my non-scientific report to our committee, and particularly to Andrew, who brings back some messages to you. So I come here with complete support of buses and trains, knowing that our city does not come back fully until MTA is back up and running. They are literally our blood, our arteries. So know this, the following questions I'm going to ask you are with respect and love. I'm just going to go real quick. I have been very disturbed by maskless passengers and maskless bus drivers. I have documented it. I send photographs to Andrew. It happens regularly. I have respectfully and friendly approached bus drivers to a point where some of them are very dismissive. I find it very disturbing. I think not only is it a violation of the rules, but it sets a very bad example. And then why would a passenger feel that they have to comply if the driver themselves is not complying? So I'd like you to speak on that real quick. And I'm just going to sort of bang through this real quick, in the spirit of time here. The other, question I have has to do with fare evasion. And when I've spoken to some drivers anecdotally, just, look, I don't want to see anyone in danger, particularly bus drivers' lives, that's regarding their personal safety. But I've just seen countless number of times people just walk on and the bus drivers just go, I can't say anything. I'm not supposed to say anything. I have never, and I'm going to tell you this. I take regularly the M7, the M11, the M86 SBS, the M104, the M57, the M31, the M5, M79, M72. I have never in 2 years seen a single enforcement of anyone wearing a mask or fare evasion. Occasionally on the SBS, I will see your Eagle team. I've asked the Eagle team, can they enforce masks? The answer has been, to me, no. So, and I was very disturbed to hear that in the month of August, not a single $50 fine was issued anywhere in the MTA to anyone not wearing a mask. I mean, 2.7 million riders and not a single. So I just feel like people have to feel safe, including myself, but forget me, there are millions of other people. And I think it's part of a problem. If we're not safe and we're not feeling safe, how do people come back? So I'll stop there. And if you could address those things in any order, I really appreciate it. And again, I say it with great respect because I want the buses back and safe. Thank you.
So I appreciate that. And, I do appreciate that. So first thing with the maskless bus operators, there's no excuse. It's the law, right? We have zero tolerance for it, right? What I would say is keep reporting it for sure, and they will be dealt with. We have a road operations team out there who are doing and do observations. We also, during pullouts, we hand out masks to all our bus operators. There's no excuse to say there's no masks or short masks. It's definitely a continued effort. I think we're at about 95% mask compliance on the Manhattan buses. We have observations out there, but it just needs to continue. I'm going to, by this discussion, I'm going to ask Manhattan to step it up, our road operations to keep a look at it. It's going to be a constant battle, right? Because you have the non-believers, but it's the law. It's our policy. It's the law. And, it's not negotiable, right? Even for riders, right? And we don't want to put our bus operators in a position where they get assaulted, right? Because of enforcing fares or enforcing masks. That's the last thing we want, right? And to your point with fare evasion, so we have deployed, let me go back. We have started to deploy a specialized team with that, or they're not the Eagle team, they're like the MTA PD team are out there. There's not thousands of them, but they're a small team and they are hitting the larger routes with that are noted or observed with mass compliance. So they're out there, and I believe they began giving out tickets more recently. And the same team is going to be used for fare evasion. We identify the highest fare evasion routes. We know it's a system-wide problem. It continues to be. And, there's a resource issue, right, to put folks on there. But we APC data, passenger counters, and we compare that to AFC data, and we could tell where we have our highest evasion routes, and we're deploying those teams. And, we're also using those teams for, other issues with, bus operators where we see high assault lines and stuff. So it may be small, but, we're trying to take little bites out of it. I apologize once again. There's no excuse for maskless bus operators. I'll be walking outside here to Broadway. I'll see them. I'll stop them. Sometimes I'll be riding a bus and I always keep them right here. And, Mark and I were out recently and, the bus operator had, it was here. Azimuth's this. Is like, listen, absolutely, it's not acceptable.
For you, they'll put them on, Frank.
You've got a badge.
All I would say behind what Frank said also is to please keep the complaints, if you will, coming. We do have an entire staff that's devoted to customer complaints, a large component of which is mass complaints and mass compliance for not only our operators, but other customers on board our buses as well. And those reports are generated weekly, and we see those all the time. So please keep the complaints coming.
So we do have, for every good, there's bad, right? So I will say, I just signed a bunch of commendations for bus operators. I had a stack of them, right? And I pulled these out, right? And the bus operator of the described bus politely insisted that the customer wear a mask per MTA policy. The customer firmly resisted at first, and due to the great personal discipline of the bus operator, the customer's initial resistance and non-compliance were de-escalated. And, that was one of the accommodations I received from a passenger, right? And there's another one here about a bus operator where she had calmly, respectfully insisted that the riders wear the mask. We are teaching a de-escalation training for our bus operators to deal with that also, to be able to deal with it objectively without escalation, right? So.
And Doug is absolutely fair. He has also sent me recommendations for commendations when a bus operator has done an exceptional job, and I've sent those on to you as well.
No, I'm sure I've signed a few of them.
As a happy story, a feel-good story, that's absolutely true. And in fact, I ran into the bus driver again, boarding his bus, and he said, they thanked me. You really meant you were going to compliment me, and it was a wonderful feeling, and he felt great. So yes, absolutely. I want to share good stories and bad. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And it's important to I'm happy to see that there are bus operators, and I think there's a lot of them that take it personal, right? And they take the safety and welfare of our customers, to heart. So, but yeah, just please keep sending them. We'll address it. So,
thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, we have a few more questions from non-committee members and then from the community, but we're going to try to keep this short because we only have a few more minutes for this. So first, Natasha, and then Rich Robbins.
Hi, thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm a very loyal MTA subway and bus rider. And in the spirit of the robust discussion that we just had, I would like to say that I was in fact refused on a bus, an M79 bus in August, because I was not wearing a mask. I asked before I got on if I should be wearing a mask or not, because that's when the mandate had just come out that if you were fully vaccinated, you didn't need to. And I was told that, no, you can't get on. So, and the bus driver himself was fully masked. So there is some enforcement, and I was annoyed by it, but I was also very, very reassured. And it made me feel safer. I have a few comments and then one specific question. You talked about transit signal priority, but if I could also recommend bus stop cleaning priority, especially in the winter months and during snowstorms. I've seen very often garbage bags or like big mountains of snow in front of the bus stops. It's very difficult for people to get on and off, and it slows down even more. So that would be very helpful. And also, I think it would be a real injustice to allow e-bikes onto buses when, even people with children's scooters and strollers are often, either unwelcome or they have to make a lot of effort to fold them up before getting on. And then finally, my question is also about COVID-related safety. I've noticed that on some buses, once in a while, some of the windows on top are opened up, I'm guessing for ventilation purposes. But on most buses, they are not. And even the exit hatch up top, it used to be actually open pre-COVID on many, many buses, I guess for ventilation and on really hot days. But I haven't seen that happening recently. And I'm wondering if there's no way to open up the windows as much as we can on days when it's not raining or snowing or the weather is okay, just to help with the ventilation. Thank you.
Thank you. But to answer but yes, the windows can be open. You know, it's discretionary based on passenger comfort, but we do recommend when weather permitting, that the transom windows can be open. We encourage it. It helps people feel more safe and more air circulation, but we'll recirculate that bulletin to our bus operators for sure. But
yeah,
we'll let them use it discretionarily, but winter's coming, so I don't want to freeze you out either, but certainly.
Plus NYU and the Sam Schwartz Company have done extensive studies, and public transit is not known to be a spreader because the air is recirculated so many times per hour on these vehicles. So you're actually safer there than you are in a school building or an office building.
Thank you.
Rich?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us. You have a busy job, and joining an individual community board is really great. I have 4 really quick questions. Number 1 is 14th Street banned cars, and I'm wondering if the buses have seen an increase in ridership and if that's something you'd like to see duplicated. Second, just generally, what has been preventing greater ridership? I echo Doug in saying, New York City can't come back unless public transportation does. And we're worried about the death spiral, that people don't ride buses because of that. Bus service gets cut and fewer people end up riding. Number 3, have we seen an increase in bus speed because of the cameras? Has that been helping? And number 4, you were asked the question about whether e-bikes cannibalize public transportation. Are we seeing, we know there are many more people driving cars and taking public transportation. Has that also been cannibalizing public transportation?
So the first one, 14th Street, yes, we saw a 24% increase in customers. Okay. The increased bus speeds and bus lanes, absolutely. I don't have the system-wide spec, but we did see significant increase in speeds with bus lanes, and even and also with the able enforcement. Let's see here.
Just what prevents greater ridership? What are you seeing as
we're trying to get riders, to come back, right? I think as one of the points where, and our suspicions were right, when schools opened, businesses started opening back up, right? And what we saw was the highs and the spikes in ridership were during the 6A and to 9A and the 2 to 5P, right? The work commuters, right? So people are coming back to work. I think essentially just to attract folks back, let things like Andrew said, empirical data that shows that public transit is not the spreader of COVID, number 1. Number 2, to let folks know that we're there. We're providing good, reliable transportation. And that's something that, that's my job. That's my team's job, to build back better from COVID, getting our bus operators onboarded. And, so that when folks, have an expected journey, they get that journey, right? They're not missing stops. So we need to continually improve to bring them back. And then, we're hoping to bring back that pre-pandemic 100% service, and we're getting close. We're running a full schedule. We're onboarding the operators. But, and it's just, and it's folks like you all advocates for it, and I think lastly, and, I don't really have much information on it, but, there's that big congestion pricing topic that's going around too, right? I think if that's something that actually comes to fruition, we're going to see an increase in ridership also. So, and we're open to suggestions, right? We want to bring back New York for sure, and we want to fill our seats. So Andrew calls and says there's standing room only. So.
Then
Thank
the
you.
cannibalization.
We have two more questions from Peter Arneson and Eric Overton, and then we'll be set. We'll let you go. Okay. Peter and then Erica.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your work. Thank the committee for bringing you on. This is great. Mr. Levine has already offered to send me a contact within the MTA, which was part of my question. But I just wanted to say how important the buses are for us in our neighborhood. We've got a number of seniors, a lot of young people, and I would love to see more bus lanes up here. And if there's things that the bid or the community board can be doing to support those, I'd be glad to be involved in that. So
And
thank you
Peter,
very
you
much.
forgot to add, not that many accessible subway stations.
I should have perhaps, but there's they're working right now. The work on the street is to make the curbs accessible,
Yes.
and that's taking a huge, having a huge impact in the neighborhood right now. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
And last but not least, Erica.
Hi, everyone. Erica Overton from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office. It is a pleasure to talk to you. One of the things that the Assembly member worked very closely with President Byford was what Jay had been talking about, was the M104. And so we had a town hall. He rode the bus, the M104, with us, with a bunch of community board members and constituents. And so I just want to put that in the forefront of your mind, just because it is a popular bus. I'm sorry, I have a puppy. And so who wants to go out? But so that is something that is greatly important to the neighborhood. And then the other thing is transit signal priority. The Assembly member wrote a letter about different bus routes that on the west side that could use transit signal priority, and having a meeting with DOT and the MTA and the community boards to discuss which ones are candidates and whatnot, since you're going to expand it soon. So I just wanted to also bring that to your attention as well, so we could have a conversation on that. But that's it. But thank you.
Great. Well, now's the
Thank
time.
you.
Right? We're expanding TSB, so excellent.
I'll be sending you a list of some prominent West Side locations, Frank.
Please do. And we'll that was echoed. We hear it. The 104. So
Thank you.
I think we're set.
Okay. Well,
Andrew,
if
do you wanna-
nothing
do you wanna-
else.
Thank you so much for coming, Frank, and you
Thanks
and your
for
team.
inviting us. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
we really appreciate it.
We appreciate your support too. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Take care.
You too.
Great. Okay, let's move along here. We are going to move on to item number 3, which is discuss potentially dangerous conflicts between bike lanes and outdoor restaurant street seating and ways to eliminate these conflicts. We mentioned this before. I think we all can agree having bikes broadly defined, zipping through the middle of a restaurant isn't the best configuration. And so if Colleen is still on, we would like to get your thoughts on this, and possibly, it depends on the mood of the committee, maybe have a resolution tonight calling for the DOT to come up with a better solution for this. I've said this a million times. I don't know what the solution is. I would like to see what the DOT could come up with. I have to believe there is a safer way to do this than having the bikes whiz through the middle of the restaurant. That's my belief. Maybe I'm wrong. Colleen, do you want to weigh in on this?
Hi, Howard. It's Colleen. I'm here. Send us a resolution and, we'll take a look at it. But I know we are working on safety guidelines when the program becomes permanent. So I'm sure things are going to change. But I know the board is looking for something to be done as soon as possible.
Yes, there's a lot of restaurants where the bikes whiz through and servers and restaurant patrons are at risk.
And it's the design's fault. The bikes are entitled to move in the bike lane and the customers are entitled to move around the restaurant. It's just the design. Ramming it right through the middle of the restaurant is just asking for trouble. It's sort of like putting a highway through the middle of Washington Square Park. It doesn't make any sense. Who wants to comment on this?
You mean like continuing Fifth Avenue, Howard?
I was thinking of Robert Moses's proposal. Anyway, from each direction. In any event, why don't we have comments from the committee on this? Barbara Adler, and then Sarah, and then Christian.
Okay, a few things. I took photographs of 10 restaurants on Columbus Avenue that were set up without any buffer zone. So you stepped out of that restaurant and you were standing on the bike lane. And, you know, you go to a restaurant at night, it's dark when you come out there, you can step out. If you've had a glass of wine, forget about it. You know, you really, your life is in danger. I don't understand why no violations have been given out. I was under the impression that that the buffer zone was created for a reason, and that the restaurant structures were not supposed to be right up against the bike lane. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd like to suggest is that a partial fix, not for the buffer zone, but a partial fix for being able to come out of a restaurant and actually see that you're on a bike lane would be to require every one of these structures to have some lights when they're on the east side of the avenue and that shine onto the bike lane. Seems like a really easy thing that could be required. And the other thing is that I have noticed that since they're remilling now in our neighborhood, they are remilling and paving around these structures. And what kind of a horrible mess are we going to have on these streets and on the side streets? I just noticed one today on 74th Street between Broadway and Weston Avenue that it's just disastrous. I can't imagine what it's going to look like. And so many of these structures will have to change, will have to be shortened. I wonder how DOT is approaching that.
Barbara, I just have a question to follow up on what you said. Colleen, can you explain what the rule is regarding the buffer zones? I'm not sure I understand what the rule is.
Yeah, thank you. That's good.
Colleen?
You know, Howard, I don't have much details in terms of what the rules are with the buffer zone. I'd have to get back to the community board on that.
Because I see many restaurants having seating right adjacent to the bike lane. I didn't even know there was a requirement for a buffer zone. I don't even know if there's room for a buffer zone in many of the cases. I just have no idea what the rules are.
I don't know that there is.
The buffer zone, I believe it is painted on the street adjacent to every bike lane, and you can't see it in many instances, but then the majority of the restaurant structures have actually abided by what I think is the rule, because they're diagonal lines and it's probably about 18 inches wide, that's all. And, you know, it's into the road, you know, not on the sidewalk side, the other side. Take a look and you'll see what I'm talking about.
But in many cases, there's the bike lane and then there's the parking lane that the restaurant took over. And I don't know there's really any quote unquote buffer zone between that parking lane.
If I may, when they did the bike lanes, you have, as part of the protection against the car, you have the parking lane, then you have a buffer zone between the parking lane and the bike lane. So you could say, yes, so you could say the bike lane and the buffer zone are the bike lane. The open seating restaurant, the open seating was supposed to be only on the parking side. Many restaurants have been expanding, or they have been, let's say, exceeding the areas where they're supposed to be at. And this is one of the problems. They were never meant to be on that buffer zone. But there's been little enforcement, and so that's what we are with right now.
Interesting. Next, Sarah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Colleen, I've seen in other areas of the city that they've actually changed it. So the bike lane goes outside the restaurant. The restaurant is right up next to the curb and the bike lane goes outside. And then there's a buffer and some bollards. Not that I think that plastic bollards are the most effective safety mechanism, but in terms of, you know, removing the bike lanes from going right through restaurants, it seems like a good solution. So I'm wondering, like, what's the process to make that happen? Or is there a reason why it's happened in some places, but not here on the Upper West Side?
Sarah, what location is that? Because I'm not familiar with that. Where did you see that?
So I've seen it in Tribeca.
Okay. I know, like, under the temporary program, a lot of restaurants set up and they build structures in areas where they probably should not have done so. But I know when the program becomes permanent, they're going to have to reapply. There's going to be a lot of vetting going through, you know, with the new program when this becomes permanent, as well as, you know, strong enforcement. I'll take a look at the one in Tribeca. I'm not familiar with that location. It's probably a change that they recently made.
Yeah, it looks like it was done very recently.
Okay, if you can, I'll put my email in the chat. If you can, tell me exactly where it is in Tribeca.
Yep.
We'll take a look at that. Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Christian?
Well, I just wanted to comment that there is an inherent conflict between this open seating for the restaurants in the street and the bike lane. If you were to move the restaurant against the sidewalk and try to put the bike lane behind it, you essentially put in the bike lane next to the traffic lane, which is what you wanted to avoid in the first place. And that's not going to be a good solution unless you were to take away another traffic lane to do that. So this is really the bike lanes at the restaurant cities next to the bike lanes. This is a conflict. I don't know that there is any solution that won't require a major redesign of losing more parking, losing more traffic lanes. So I don't know what they're going to come up with.
Again, I don't know either, Christian, but the DOT, again, I've said this a lot of times, we pay high taxes so they can hire experts. Maybe they'll come up with something. Off the top of my head, I've seen restaurant seating, then the bike lane, and then bollards, separating the bike lane from the traffic lane. And by the way, those plastic bollards are much more durable than most people think. If you fill them with water, they're really solid. So I don't know, Christian, is the answer, but presumably someone at the DOT has some good ideas. Who's next? Ken.
Just following up on that, I was just going to say that I think if we're talking about plastic bollards, the very thin white things that I don't think that is a decent.
No, I'm talking about the big orange ones that actually fill with water and are incredibly strong.
Right, yeah. Those or Jersey barriers. I think those should be the standard. But the plastic bollards are, they're not physical protection, and it's too easy for them to be removed either by people who shouldn't remove them or by DOT for one reason or another, and then not put them back. For instance, on Central Park West, there are a lot of blocks where they haven't been put back since there was the concerts, and we're still waiting for that. But and in terms of Christian's concerns, the math almost adds up. It doesn't quite, I think, when you add in the barriers that we'd have to put in, but it almost adds up if you say the restaurant is going to be as wide as the parking space plus the buffer, and then you have the bike lane, and then you have the moving lane for motorized traffic. So if you get rid of maybe a little bit of the buffer, shave off a little bit of that, you have enough room for a nice barrier, and you've got everything.
Well, Ken, right now you have the bike lane, a buffer when it's done right, and the restaurant seating. If you just reorganize that without changing anything, you have restaurant seating, the bike lane, and then the buffer. Mm-hmm. So the buffer goes between the 18 inches, whatever it is, now is moved between the moving cars and the bike lane. You're set without adding or subtracting an inch. Again, the DOT knows a lot more about this than I do. Jay.
Yeah, I know the purpose of this discussion is not to discuss the fundamental question of restaurant seating in the streets at all, but the simple solution is wherever you have a protected bike lane, you limit restaurant seating to the sidewalk, and the conflict disappears. Pretty simple.
Well, again, if you have a footache, you can amputate the foot. I don't know if that's really necessarily the best approach. So, but maybe the DOT has something a little less invasive. Doug?
At the risk of repeating what we talked about before, and Colleen was present, during the midst of the pandemic, before roadway seating even started, the original inclination that a lot of people had, including elected officials, during our long walk, was to have the bike lane swapped, just as described. And it seems logical. I understand there's some geometry here and to figure it out, and but that seems like a long-term play. I mean, there's going to be rulemaking for the seats. Obviously, we just had a whole conversation and it went to city planning. So that's the long term. What I'm thinking in short term, I know that some restaurants took it upon themselves, perhaps not so smartly, to install speed bumps. That was pretty silly. And obviously but flashing lights, slow down. I don't know if there's anything we can do to mitigate the conflict until the rulemaking is really set. And but I do think that we have to do something, because the conflict is there every single day and night. So, flashing lights, slow down. I know we have those reflectors that are required on the roadway seating. Maybe there's something that we can do, or maybe if it's not a question of, if DOT would allow certain things that restaurants can do on their own. I mean, they're installing signs that say slow down. I mean, if it's standardized, but if it's not a question of DOT doing it, are there options that restaurant operators can do with the permission and blessing of the DOT?
I think where this is heading, and I know Rich is going to speak, and then we have a comment. Peter has his hand up. Is maybe we should have a resolution asking for the DOT to come back to us with some options.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going.
Yeah. Okay. Rich, and then Peter. Rich.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think it's a really important message here is we don't want to cut down either outdoor dining or protected bike lanes. They're both really important to the community. And I agree, we should ask DOT to come up with solutions. They're the experts, not us. I think we need both short-term solutions. We've thrown out some, I don't know if they're right or not, but definitely lights, mandating signage from the restaurant warning patrons that before they step out, they're stepping out into a traffic lane. Maybe some form of swinging barrier to give patrons that much more of a reminder that they're walking out into a vehicle lane. But ultimately, we need a longer term solution. And for tonight, Colleen asked for a resolution. I think we need a resolution asking for DOT for both short-term and long-term solutions to, because otherwise, and I've said this many times before, this is a ticking time bomb. There will be fatalities. And we've got to address this really quickly because people will be dying.
Thank you, Rich. Last but not least, Peter.
Thanks again.
Bill
Yes.
Ortiz also has his hand up.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say how important the outdoor dining has been for the restaurants. And obviously protected bike lanes are really important for bike riders. I wish there was something that could be done, and I'd be glad to work with anybody that has ideas for ways to slow down some of the bikers that are moving too quickly. It just is really beyond what they need to be doing. And it's a real problem in a number of areas. So I'll just leave it there. But if anybody does have an idea on trying to slow down the bikes without doing something stupid, I'd be glad to.
Thank you. Bill?
Hi, thank you, Howard. And I just asked a quick question in the chat about indoor dining, whether it's at 100% or still at a limit. It seems like it's at 100%. I'm going to propose a very radical idea. Maybe we cut back on exactly what outdoor dining looks like. Winter's coming, and I don't know if you guys enjoyed outdoor dining last winter, but it was challenging for me. So I think since it's back to 100% capacity, it is as if dining is pre-COVID. So I think things could go back to pre-COVID standards. The Delta variant doesn't seem to be as deadly or has taken our country as bad as we were anticipating. So I'm very, very grateful for that. So I just have a radical idea thinking that, look, all these things that are in our streets, that are in our sidewalks, that is taking up all this space, I understand that our restaurants are reaping more revenue, which is beautiful. And I think it's really good, and I'm happy for that. But this, I mean, it's just not safe. I think I mentioned last time that whenever I bike, when I take city bike, I'd rather bike on Broadway in the streets than actually Amsterdam or Columbus. It's just not fun. It's not fun at all. So I just have a radical idea saying that we should propose restaurants to reconsider expanding or keeping their outdoor dining section, making it smaller, and they need to come up with creative ways, like maybe outdoor dining fee or something to create that revenue. But those are my 2 cents there.
Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, I'll propose a resolution asking the DOT to come up with safer configurations. And a few people made the distinction between short-term and long-term. We could throw that in the resolution. Safer configurations, what can be done in the short term and what should be done in the long term to have a safer configuration on the street regarding restaurant outdoor seating and the bike lanes.
Howard, do you want to just add to it while continuing to focus on street cleaning, snow removal, and vehicular throughput?
And I don't recall who mentioned the redoing of the street. I think it was Barbara. On 68th Street, where I live, between Central Park West and Columbus, there is this huge zone that's just messed up because of the outdoor seating, and that's going to be there for years now. So that should be
it's a huge there. What did you say?
Huge messed up zone where the
zone.
Zone.
Yeah.
And presumably that's going to be messed up and uneven and unsightly until they repave the streets in I don't know how many years from now. So we'll put that in there as well.
If it's appropriate, I'd love to hear Colleen respond to that because she didn't answer that question, but clearly our streets are going to look like God only knows what when all this ends or changes.
So Barbara, at the moment, we're paving around the structures. And when the structures are removed, we're going to go back out there to, redo that segment that we did not get to do.
Thank you.
Great.
Howard?
Anyone else?
Yeah, could we just say we want this without sacrificing, as Rich said, either the financial viability of the restaurants or the protection of the bike lanes?
Yeah, I would put in there to accommodate the existing bike lanes and restaurant seating. Again, restaurants may be moving back to full capacity, but they were hit very hard. And then there's another thing going on. New York needs to come back, and what makes New York special is street life. And I think everyone agrees that this has animated the streets in a way that's great for New York. And so ideally, we want to keep that. If we have to sacrifice, we'll think about it down the road. But let's see what the DOT can come up with that doesn't involve a sacrifice.
Point of order, Howard.
What?
I have a point of order.
Okay.
I thought that we were in general agreement that we would not be offering resolutions by the seat of our pants in committee unless they were formulated in advance with a written text and posted so that the committee and non-committee members and the public had advance notice that a resolution was going to be considered. So I would suggest that if you want to propose a resolution on this subject, that you formulate it and bring it up and post it and bring it up at the next meeting, not all of a sudden at this meeting. I don't think it's appropriate.
Okay, I thought the rule was that it has to be posted on the agenda. The exact wording didn't have to be. That was my understanding of my understanding.
I don't see any resolution on the agenda.
There's a way around this conflict, which is Howard or somebody will draft the resolution, we'll send it to the committee. We can have a pre-full board committee meeting and vote on it, and then send it to the full board or not.
Sounds like a perfect plan.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll come up with some wording and we'll probably circulate by email. We'll circulate by email.
Is that all right, Jay? Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea is to have it in writing so that we know exactly what's in it and enough notice to consider it. So that's fine.
Great.
Great. Okay.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Sure.
I think for an issue that's been noticed, I don't know that it's feasible to have a pre-written resolution. And who would write it? Don't we want to have a discussion before writing a resolution, but especially for something urgent like this where lives could be at stake? Do we really want to push things off and not be able
We're
to?
not
really
pushing it off, Rich.
But
it'll still
we're
get
not-
voted on by the full board exactly when it was going to.
But we don't have the opportunity to have a discussion about what the resolution should really entail, which is something that's usually done at committee. So if we're doing it just a few minutes before full board, we're missing out on the chance to have a discussion. We also can look at something real time. I just put together a possible draft that I put in Google Docs. I put a link to it in chat so anyone can look and see what we'd be talking about. And I think it's just a better way where we can have a discussion about a potential resolution and come to agreement. I don't think this is that contentious of an issue. And it is something that's an urgent matter. And this way we can have a—
Rich raises an important point, because then it takes 2 months to do anything, because the written text, even the first draft of the written text, should be informed by the committee's opinions. So I think ideally we could get this done in one meeting and not two, especially when there's a matter of urgency. Ken, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just think that adequate notice is that we have this as a discussion topic, and the public knows that we're going to be talking about this issue, and that, you know, I don't know of any other committee that puts this kind of restriction on itself, that it can't have the outcome of a discussion, a resolution, just because that resolution hasn't been presented to the public as opposed to the topic of discussion. And we've already done that, both for this item and the one that's coming up next. So so I think we're unique in you know, demanding this of ourselves, which I think is inappropriate.
Well, now I didn't know Rich had drafted a resolution. We could take 1 minute. I could read it. It's short, and we could vote on it. Let's see.
And just before you do that, Howard, this isn't meant to be like taken verbatim. If people have changes, that's the idea of Google Docs, is you can change it. This is just
And
like
it's the idea of having a meeting to craft a resolution.
This is meant to just be a start. I welcome input, and I'm sure input.
Rich, as the author, do you want to read it?
Can you put it in the chat?
It's in the chat. That's where I got it.
I put a link to the document in the chat, and the document's open, so anyone.
I still object to this procedure. And Rich, of all people, in the past, has vigorously objected to bringing up resolutions without adequate public notice that a resolution would be presented and voted on. So I maintain my objection.
That is not true. I've objected to discussions that have not been noticed.
I think if we
No,
discuss
you've
the
objected to
resolution,
resolutions that have
wait,
not
there's
been
no more comment on the procedure.
posted in
Rich is
advance.
reading the resolution, and then we'll discuss it. So let's hear about the substance. Rich?
Okay, and again, this is just a first draft. I welcome input, but CB7 recognizes the importance of outdoor dining for restaurants in the community and supports their being made permanent. CB7 also supports protected bike lanes, as they have shown to make streets safer for all users. However, CB7 sees an urgent safety concern, as outdoor dining on roadways requires restaurant patrons and staff to walk directly in the path of bike lanes. We are concerned that it's just a matter of time until there are fatalities. CB7 calls on DOT to develop both short-term, and then parenthetically, potentially lights, mandated signage, and some form of swinging barrier, and long-term solutions to address the issue without sacrificing either the bike lanes or outdoor dining.
I would just take out some form of swinging banner. To me, that sounds particularly perilous. But other than that, I don't have any comments on it. Anyone else have a comment?
I do. What was
Oh.
that first line? Could you read that first line again, please?
Yeah, and again, if you click on the link in chat, you can get and see the whole thing.
Yeah, but I don't want to go off the screen, okay? I prefer not to do that right now.
First line is CB7 recognizes the importance of outdoor dining for restaurants in the community and supports their being made permanent.
Okay, that's the part I have an issue with that. That is.
So do I.
So do I.
Wait, so what?
and supports their being made permanent. We have not discussed it. That is a
We've
whole.
had no
itself.
committee discussions on that issue.
That's a whole
No
nother
board
discussion.
meetings on that issue.
Wait, what are people,
No votes
what's the
on that
language?
issue.
Wait, you're not being helpful. What language are you objecting to?
The first declaration.
CD7 recognizes the importance of outdoors dining persons and the community board and supports there being a, oh yeah, okay. We can take that out.
Yeah.
My whole reason for bringing this up is it's a dangerous situation. I just want to know if the DOT is aware of it, and if they are, do they have solutions? I'm being candid with my intent. So I don't see that as necessary. I would take that first paragraph out.
I'm just wondering what we should say about outdoor dining if we don't want to make a statement that's that strong.
Don't have to say anything about outdoor dining. You're talking
Just
about
talk about the
exist-
conflict.
the
We're talking
dangers.
about, there's outdoor dining now and there are bike lanes. Is there any way the conflicts between the two can be abated? That's
Right,
really
exactly.
That's it.
You
That's
limited it to the situation as it currently exists.
Yes.
Exactly. Currently exists. It's an accident waiting to happen.
Oh, I think there have been a bunch of accidents that have already happened.
There already have been some.
No kidding.
Okay, I think what we'll do is this is I don't know if it's going to please everyone or not please everyone. I think we are pretty close to actual wording. I will send it around, and I my bet is that it's going to be a 1-minute discussion before our next community board meeting, because it's
great.
I just envision something saying so I have some feedback. What I intend the wording to say is that there's bike lanes, there's street seating. Is there any way that conflicts between the two can be avoided or minimized?
Well, since we're so close to the wording, why can't we vote right now?
Okay, okay, do you want to be the wordsmith, Ken? We have one other item, so that could give a little time for you to potentially wordsmith it. What is our next item?
And I had a comment.
Yes.
I just feel that a lot of the wording in here is very leading for the DOT. If we're constantly saying that the DOT has its own experts, why are we leading them on by giving them specific suggestions like signage or whatever else, swinging doors, etc. It just seems to be like a lot of the wording seems very leading, whether it's making something.
It is leading.
I want to agree with Natasha on that. My hand was raised as well, and I agree with you.
But neither is rich. So I'm not sure.
I'm okay with that. I thought that we had general agreement on lights and potentially signage, but if people object to it, that
we want DOT to come up. They're the experts.
Yeah, I thought the whole point.
We have no agreement at this point on anything.
Keep them on.
All right, so I took that out and have a new version in chat, and it's also
really short.
Let's see.
And I think we need to leave out long-term solutions because we don't know what the long-term program is going to be for outdoor dining.
Well, the
We're
city has
talking
said
about
they're
the existing situation. You're making a lot of assumptions here that just aren't fact.
The city is committed to taking them beyond 2023, aren't they?
We don't know what form it's going to take. And by the way, that's this city administration. In a couple of months, we're going to have a new one.
Well, we're talking to this one, not the next one.
Exactly. We're talking about the way the situation exists.
Right.
Now, there are outdoor restaurants, there are bike lanes. If you want to ask the DOT for an opinion as to how they can make the situation safe.
And it's likely not to happen until the next administration.
But as long as the policy is to keep them in place, the city needs to be developing long-term solutions to make them safe. And so we shouldn't say, well, they might not still be in existence in a few years, so we shouldn't be planning for the possibility that they might be.
Well, I also object to the language without sacrificing either the physically protected bike lanes or outdoor dining. They may decide that you have to sacrifice one or the other.
Why are we
Well, our goal,
proscribing
Jay, is
if
to
we're
ask
asking
them
DOT?
We're
asking
telling
DOT
them,
what they can come up with.
we're
If they
telling
say
them
that-
in the resolution that we want them to
Exactly.
maintain both. That may not be the solution.
So where are we now?
I think Mark made a change, and I'll read it out loud. CB7 calls on DOT, the first paragraph I think is innocuous. Second paragraph, CB7 calls on the DOT to develop both short-term solutions and include in the guidelines to be developed for long-term use of outdoor dining options to address the issue without sacrificing either the bike lanes or outdoor dining. I think that's a good change, Mark. It's making clear that the long-term solutions should be incorporated in the big picture of this whole program being rolled out.
I still object to the assumption that we're now telling them that they have to maintain the bike lanes and the outdoor dining.
I don't read it that way, Jay. I read them as
No,
asking
It
what
says
they,
without sacrificing.
Wait,
I agree with him. I would really like to see a resolution that eliminates the politics. And there are politics
Exactly.
here. Let's just say the situation is unsafe. We would like DOT to come up with a solution that, considering the situation as it exists now, is made safer for everybody, for diners, for those who serve the diners, and for those who are using the bike lane. You know, it doesn't have to say what we support. It's just not part of this.
okay, we're just going to have a few more comments and then I'll call the question. Ken.
I think we kind of have a bottom line here as to what we want, and we have to follow the edicts of the board. And our board is both on record as supporting outdoor restaurants as a concept. And our board is also on record as supporting all the bike lanes in separate votes on Columbus, on Amsterdam, where these restaurants are. So, you know, we can't, I personally couldn't vote for something that would potentially throw a bike lane that we had already voted for and is saving lives every day, throw that out the window for the sake of convenience or commerce or something else. So it's kind of a bottom line for my voting for this.
Well, the DOT might decide that out.
One person at a time. Can I just make the point that we want to see if they can come up with a solution that doesn't sacrifice either. Obviously, they can cut out the restaurant seating and cut out the bike lane and there'd be nothing. We want to see if they can make the situation we currently have safer. If they can't, we'll revisit this issue. But the goal, as I see it, and the reason I raise this issue, is we have restaurant seating and we have a bike lane. Can it be made safer? I would like that question answered.
That's the
Natasha,
question, Howard.
Yes, that's the question. Yes, Natasha, and then we'll call the question. You're
No,
muted.
I'm sorry. If my hand is up, it wasn't meant to be.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, let's call the question. Again, the goal is just we have restaurant seating, we have bike lanes. We could eliminate both and probably make the streets safer. Well, maybe not. I don't know. The point is, given that we have both, is there some configuration? I'm really curious to know, is there some configuration that will make it safer? And I think that's what it says. So let's call the vote. All those in favor?
So what's the language?
What is the language?
What's the language you're proposing?
It's up on the screen. I will read it. CB7 supports protected bike lanes as they have shown to make streets safer for all users. However, CB7 sees an urgent safety concern as outdoor dining on roadways requires restaurant patrons and staff to walk directly in the path of bike lanes. We are concerned that it is just a matter of time until there are fatalities. CB7 calls on the DOT
Where
to
is
develop.
this?
It's in the chat. I'm just reading it. CB7 calls on DOT to develop both short-term solutions and include in the guidelines to, this is Mark's language, in the guidelines to be developed for long-term use of outdoor dining options to address the issue without sacrificing the physically protected bike lanes or the outdoor dining. So again, we're calling on the DOT to see what they can do to make the current situation safer. If they can't make it safer, we should revisit the question and see if we need to sacrifice something. But ideally, yep.
There's language in there that mentions long-term. What you've just been espousing was short-term. We've got an emergency situation now with bike lanes and outdoor dining. We want DOT to come up with a solution for this.
Okay, I see that as
Period.
a friendly amendment. We could take out the long term. I think, again, let's just get, I just want to have DOT's feedback. Can we prevent these conflicts?
Absolutely.
It's really simple. And with all due respect to Mark's language, I think it's good. But if you think that's a problem, I'm willing to take it out.
Howard, can you just, in the chat, tell us which is Mark? I don't see Mark's, which one is Mark's language that you keep referring to? I have
It's
a
out,
long
and we're
list.
taking it out. It doesn't matter. It's coming out.
Jay, Chris put a link to a document on the chat. So the language is not on the chat. The link to the document is.
Howard, if you could just put into the chat what you just espoused, I think that would be what everybody's looking for.
Okay, I'm going to copy and paste.
And only that, and leave off what we support or we don't support.
Exactly.
That's not part of this issue.
We've got an issue right now.
Okay, I think it went, did it go through?
Safety issue.
So I've had my hand raised for a while.
I
but
didn't
I'm
see
not
it.
shouting out. Let me know when I
Did
can
it go
talk.
in? Did it go in?
How are you trying to put it in the chat, or are you working on the Google Doc?
In the chat. I put it in the chat.
Yeah, no, it's not here.
No, it's not
So
there.
That's weird.
Are you doing to everyone or what?
Oh, no, it's to Howie Levine. Sorry.
That's why.
Okay, how's that?
That looks like it came.
I got it by copying and pasting. Rich, you have your hand up.
I do, thank you. I think the key thing here is that we need real solutions, but until we have real solutions, they should do whatever they can in the short term. So I think just saying that we need short-term solutions, in the short term, they're not going to be able to come up with what really needs to happen to make sure it's safe. The short-term solutions are Band-Aids. And so we need the distinction between the two, because we need Band-Aids until they come up with a real solution. That's what we really need to prevent the fatalities. So by getting rid of the long-term solutions, we're getting rid of what really should be the heart of this and saying we just want Band-Aids. And that's not what we want. We want—
How can somebody propose long-term solutions when we don't know what it's going to look like long-term?
Because right now, the current policy is that DOT is making this permanent. So until that changes, as long as they're planning on this being permanent, they need to plan on how to make it safe so that we don't have people getting hit and killed in the streets.
So why wouldn't a solution that solves that problem be a long-term solution?
Yeah, but as we're working on that, Jay, I have the floor. You've spoken.
We're not debating the safety of bike lanes.
Jay.
I mean, every time somebody submits another version of this, there's, as Barbara said, there's always a political undertone for bike lanes. We're not discussing the safety of bike lanes now. We're discussing trying to get DOT to evaluate safety issues with existing bike lanes and existing restaurants in the streets, period.
We're not.
I think actually,
One
this
sentence
rare
is
moment I
all
wish
we
to
need.
say, Jay Adolph summed up my position perfectly.
Okay. So that's all we need is one sentence. That we call on DOT to look at the safety issues.
I do think Mark raised another point. It's another point which is we should be interested in hearing the DOT's position on the long term, what their long term view for this is. That is an added element to this. I understand it's not essential to the issue I raised, but as long as we're adopting a resolution on it, I've heard the debate and I do think we should include it because it would be nice to hear what they have to say about it. It's not dispositive, but I'm interested.
Howard, could I jump in on that for a second?
Absolutely.
I think that our board ought to have a lot to say about the options for future outdoor dining usage. And I think that BCI should be involved in their aspects of it. And I think that transportation should be involved. And I actually would put in a pitch for YEL because all these things affect children and other folks. So I think the long-term, Jay, you're right, it may very well affect preservation. I hope nobody thinks they're going to start altering the facades just to accommodate this, but it's a good point to raise. Therefore, I think
never mind.
So my thought is that while I think that we should be heard on whatever the long-term guidelines end up being, and I know that BCI has taken a nod, if not plan to talk about this into the future. I think your long-term plan proposal is correct, but should be a unified approach across committees, because this is going to be one of those things that affects just about everybody. You could make a pitch that HHS should be involved too. So sorry, Barbara, the Parks Committee doesn't get to play in this one, but everybody else does. And
why not?
Anyway, so maybe splitting this in two, doing this, whatever it is that you guys decide to do tonight, is a good first step. And then that would be the second step that would accommodate the longer term, which I happen to think is going to be with us and we should plan for, but whether that politically works out or not remains to be seen. Thanks, I'll shut up now.
Are we ready to vote? Okay.
What are we voting on?
I will read it. It's in the chat, but I will read it. It's 2 paragraphs. CB7 supports protected bike lanes as they've shown.
Again,
all users.
This is not a resolution on the efficacy of protected bike lanes.
You know, you're forcing me to not vote in favor of this. I'll tell you right now, with that language. Let's vote on the issue and not.
Why don't we take out that sentence and begin it?
We could take that. We could take. There's no need for it. Let's see. So we can take that out. So let's is getting shorter and shorter, which in my view is better. CB7 sees an urgent safety concern as outdoor dining on roadways requires restaurant patrons and staff to walk directly in the path of bike lanes. We are concerned that it is just a matter of time until there are fatalities. CB7 calls on DOT to develop, I would just say, solutions to address the issue without sacrificing either the physically protected bike lanes or outdoor dining. And if they can't do it, they'll tell us and we'll come up with something.
Exactly.
For them.
Perfect. That's great.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Okay. We have 7 committee members. 8 committee members in favor. Anyone opposed? Please lower your hands.
I just had my hand raised because I had wanted to talk. I'm not a committee member, so I don't know if you counted me.
Oh, I might have. I'm sorry.
Then I have my. I'm sorry.
No, I saw you. Anyone
What did you vote again? So you get the right vote.
Okay,
let's
let's raise our hands again. Everyone in favor on the committee. Committee members only raise their hands. I see, and I'm looking at the actual people, 7 people. Okay, so it's 7.
Yes.
If you could all lower your hands. All those opposed, please raise their hands. 0. Anyone abstaining? 1, 2 abstentions. Okay, great. Now we'll go to non-committee members. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise their hands. 3. Anyone? Oh, sorry, 4. You can lower your hands. Anyone opposed who is a non-committee member? 0. Anyone abstaining who's a non-committee member? Okay, so it was 7-0-2, if I remember correctly, to 4-0 and 4-0-0.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along. Let's see what's next on our agenda. We have the discussion of the shortage of city bikes. This was my issue, and I just am going to report that in our
Howard, is
neighborhood.
number 4 not being discussed?
What is number 4?
Discuss the feasibility of restaurant street seating on the west side of Columbus Avenue.
It will be discussed now that you've pointed it out that I missed it entirely. This was Ken's issue, and maybe you could explain it, Ken, and then we could discuss it.
At our last meeting, we learned that, it was news to me, I hadn't thought about it, that on the west side of Columbus, in the morning, there's a 3-hour rush hour. The parking lane turns into a rush hour lane for 3 hours. And there are some structures that have been put up, for instance, by Luna, what's the name of it? Luna? Yeah, the restaurant.
Oh, Bella Luna, yeah.
Bella Luna, that's right. I knew I didn't have it quite right. And some others on the west side, and they have apparently gotten cease and desist letters from the city.
From DOT, yeah.
From DOT. And it seems to me that during this emergency situation, when everybody is being asked to make sacrifices, that drivers could sacrifice having that putative rush hour lane, which actually must not be too functional because those structures remain in the rush hour lane and have been there for quite some time, unless the cease and desist letters have some effect later on. And so I think, while we're all being asked to sacrifice, and I think it's more important to preserve the economic feasibility of our struggling restaurants than it is to encourage people to drive more quickly to Midtown in the mornings, and actually getting rid of a rush hour lane can have a beneficial effect in that it can, if there is some more congestion, can discourage driving and reduce the number of cars on the street, which helps us.
Congestion pricing will do that.
Yeah, that'll come in about 18 months.
But it's an unfair disadvantage to restaurants that have put up really expensive structures on the west side of Columbus Avenue and are now being told to take them down or put them down, take them down and put them up again when it's not rush hour. I mean, that's a little ridiculous.
Just a little, although it is good for the construction industry, I think.
Well, yeah. Doug has been a supporter of this issue, as I recall.
Yes, I am, and I thank Ken for bringing it up again because it just seems such a impractical, and there's a number of restaurants that if they have to remove their structure would lose it, and there's just no safe and practical way to take it away at night and put it back in the day. I don't think it. And so I agree in the order of priority here. I think that there should be at least, I don't know what the ultimate solution is to suspend that until rulemaking is made, which I think is the right thing to do. I don't know if there's a smarter way to do it or a technical way to do it, but I do think we need to support our restaurants in this district.
And Doug, we discussed, if it's a matter of street cleaning, which DOT has claimed it partially is, then the restaurants are responsible for cleaning their stretch there. And if they don't clean it, they get a fine, but they don't have to take this whole thing down every day.
Right. Yeah, I believe Colleen said it was not specifically for street cleaning, but she could speak to that. But yeah, I think that we want to support them. And, and it's also particularly unfair because the roadway seating that's on the east side of Columbus Avenue does not have that issue. And
right.
I think this is something that we need to address and sort of
doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's, and I think it's a minimal loss. There may be some drivers that would disagree with me, but I really don't think it is going to make much of a practical difference at all. That's my opinion.
Especially if that lane would otherwise be taken up by a delivery truck or some other vehicle, which also prevents throughput.
Okay, why don't we, let's see, Barbara wants to speak, and then Mark Diller wants to speak.
During the years I was director of the Columbus Avenue bid, we asked DOT repeatedly every single year if we could get street seats, and they're very entrenched in the feeling that the street has to be cleared during those 3 hours of time. And unless, you could propose maybe Broadway could become a truck route. Unfortunately, we only have two of them. We have Columbus and we have Amsterdam. And maybe if Broadway were serving that purpose during this period of time, it would be more feasible. But if you've ever seen the traffic on Columbus Avenue early in the morning, it's pretty congested there. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Mark and then Christian.
Thanks. So on our theme of safety, having more movable dining structures would make them less safe. The bulk of these things, I think, is what contributes to them being safer than just putting out a bollard or a barrier. And then the only other question I would contribute to your discussion is, weren't there also rush hour regulations on Amsterdam, and shouldn't we, whatever we do for Columbus, also do for Amsterdam?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it would be PM northbound rush hour on Amsterdam.
Christian?
So, this it just highlights how this program was put on the fly without considering everything they needed to consider. And they made it self-certifying from the restaurants part. So they certify all those restaurants without considering that. And then after the fact, they come back and say, oops, made a mistake, you have to clear your restaurant. So I would be in favor of a resolution that would say that to suspend those rules temporarily until they come with a new program, with a permanent program.
Ken, do you want to propose a resolution? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Just what Christian said and the way Doug phrased it, to suspend until regulations are complete. Rulemaking is complete.
Okay. Any other comments?
On both Columbus and Amsterdam.
Okay. All those in favor, raise your hands electronically.
Do we have any actual wording on this? Because I don't want to see an enhanced resolution after I voted on something. It was one sentence.
Or a diminished one, presumably.
Or a diminished one, yes.
I could try to put something together during the next discussion.
Okay, I'm sure you're going to want to weigh in on this discussion. This was my issue. I've noticed that city bikes are just not available in our neighborhood in the morning. I literally 0 bikes, and not to feed into the people who have less than admiration for City Bike. I contacted them and they never got back to me. I asked them to send, if they can comment or send a representative, and radio silence. So I don't know. I just am reporting that to the committee. I don't have a resolution. I don't have a solution. I'm just reporting that out. And I will give.
Why don't we try to get them to the next meeting?
How? They had I tried everything. I do have a contact there I can try, but my feeling is they shouldn't make it so difficult to respond to community concerns. I happen to know someone who works there, and I haven't used that contact. I went through all the channels that they had, and it resulted in nothing. But I will use that contact. And if anyone else has
this is a West Side only issue, or it's also an Upper East Side issue as well? That there's
I don't know. That's a really good question. I could say this much: downtown, there are too many bicycles that people cannot find docks, and they're having to abandon their bicycles and inefficiently call up City Bike to get the charges reversed. So it's a bad system. So I don't know what the situation is on the Upper East Side and other neighborhoods. If anyone else knows, I'm curious. Or if anyone else has any ideas as to how we should get a representative to come to our next meeting, definitely let me know, but I'm just reporting on that. Okay, what else do we have? We have old business and new business.
Sorry, Howard, I had my hand raised.
Oh, sure.
So I want to 1,000,000% agree with you on this topic. I actually don't take, I think I mentioned this before, I take the train to work, I take City Bike home. And just like you, Howard, I notice every morning I'm leaving work at the same time, almost impossible to find. 2, there aren't any more e-bikes. I know some of us are not fans of e-bikes. I have mixed feelings about e-bikes. 3, I don't know about you, Howard, but I've been grabbing more bikes and they all pretty much are trashed. The doesn't work as well as they used to. I would be more than happy to support you and try to connect with them, Howard. So after reaching out to your connection that you know, if there is no answer, maybe I can take the approach and we can work together. I'd love to help try to bring City Bike over and making sure that our community is supported. I mean, it just happens that every morning people are leaving residential neighborhoods, going to Midtown, going to Soho, going to Fide, going to City Hall, and they're all filled up. And they haven't really come up with a real solution without the 1 or 2 reservation spots. I think the one that's by the Ritz-Carlton and the Big Apple store, they have these concierge there. They're constantly pulling bikes, but it's not in every location. So
I thought you took the subway one way, William.
I take the subway definitely one way, but you know, it was beautiful this morning for me.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah,
Next
Howard, I would
day.
love to be involved in whatever you're working on as far as connecting with them and try to see what we can do to get them here.
Great, thank you. Okay, new business or old business? Any new business or old business? If Colleen's still here, I would just like an update on our outstanding matters. Are you still there, Colleen?
I'm here, Howard, and I don't have any updates for you at the moment, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. I did send an email to the community board regarding a resolution that was passed, I think maybe a few months ago, regarding left turns, and our signals division reached out to us and they wanted to know if the board can identify a few specific locations that they can look at.
We'll get that to you. We'll get you a list of 10. I have my list here. This is the 3rd anniversary of our loading zone resolution. I know we called for it on Riverside Drive, I'm sorry, West End Avenue and Central Park West. And I know we did not call for them necessarily on Amsterdam and Columbus, but that's, you know, those 2 avenues often turn into 1-lane roads during rush hour. As I've said before, you know, you said you need to figure out what the ideal situation is for loading zones. Scientists have been looking for years at the ideal number of hours people should sleep a night, but everyone knows it's not 0. The same thing with loading zones. I don't know what the ideal number is. I do know, and I think everyone knows the number is not 0. So again, this is the 3rd anniversary of this request. It's an important request. It's important for drivers to keep the streets free. It's important for safety. And Colleen, we're still waiting. Any thoughts on that?
I don't have any information. I mean, I'll take it back as I mentioned, but nothing new has changed. And I know you've had conversation with Borough Commissioner Pinkar about the loading zones, and and we've had calls about it. But from what I know, I mean, nothing much has changed. But I'll raise it with him tomorrow when I see him.
Well, my question then is, when do you think it's 3 years? When do you think it may change?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
because,
again, could you possibly find out?
Sure, I'll find out.
Okay, great. West 72nd Street, anything new on that?
I don't have an update on you on that again. I mentioned at my last meeting that as soon as I have more information, I'll share it with the community board, but I don't have anything to share at the moment.
Didn't you tell us at the last meeting it would be the spring? when we
Well,
would get
it's what I had mentioned at the last meeting, but I don't have anything further to add to that.
so that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. That's correct.
Colleen, Howard has brought up, and now another community board member has brought up the unsafe intersection of 65th and Central Park West and all of the crazy turns that people are trying to make and putting people in danger. Have you had anybody look at that traffic signal yet?
So I've asked my colleague to see if we received anything from the board about that, and I have not received a resolution from the community board.
Well, that's a no-brainer. I think we could devise one right.
Well, we could actually just stick it on the list of 10 intersections. So that'll be definitely go on the list, unless anyone has an objection. What else did I have here?
Howard, would that include turning through the transverse at 65th Street when you're coming north?
That's exactly right. Yeah, when the
great.
cars are shooting south.
The one he's been talking about.
Right.
Thank you.
So,
okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and by the way, if anyone on the committee has a particularly dangerous intersection they'd like added to the list, feel free to email me. Try to do it in the next week because we're going to put together the list.
I think in the chat we now have the proposed resolution.
Oh, great. Do you want to read it, Ken or Andrew?
Yeah, I'll read it. I put it in the Google Doc that Rich created also. Restaurants on the west side of Columbus Avenue on the east side of Amsterdam Avenue are prohibited from erecting permanent outdoor seating structures should be in the parking lane due to rush hour regulations that turn the parking lane into a travel lane. This puts these restaurants at an economic disadvantage, particularly in comparison to restaurants across the avenues from them. Therefore, CB7 calls on the DOT to suspend the rush hour regulations for the duration of the pandemic or until rulemaking is complete for outdoor restaurants, whichever comes later.
I just have a question on that, Ken. Are you sure about Amsterdam? Because as far as I know, I think Tecumbe still has their structure outside. Jacob's Pickles has their structure outside. I'm rarely on Columbus, so I'm going to take most people's word on I think Barbara's on Columbus that they have to rebuild and do all this stuff. But I think on Amsterdam, they have it on the east side of the street.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
No, they are there. They're also there on the west side of Columbus. The issue is that they've been some of these restaurants have been issued cease and desist that are basically DOT's telling them that they have to be removed. And so they're there, but they're operating at their
and the restaurants are being threatened.
The only thing in the resolution, you use the word permanent. They're not technically permanent, so we may want to use a different word, sturdy or otherwise, but they're not actually.
Oh yeah, good point. What's
Ken,
above yours in the chat is my draft. You might take a look at the therefore paragraph and then see if that does it, because it's a little less specific about that.
I don't see it. Okay.
It's above yours, Ken.
Oh, above mine. Okay.
Yeah.
Tasha raised a good point in chat about how this will affect our bus lanes.
It wouldn't affect buses at all. They already go around these things.
I thought you might want to add that it's just a 3-hour rush hour regulation in the morning.
Yeah, that looks good to me, Mark.
Yeah, I forgot to say Amsterdam and Columbus though, but yeah, throw that in and I think you got it.
Yeah, it's good.
I have a question. How, so the bus lanes are not impacted? These are in the bus lanes right now, right? These structures.
You're saying bus lanes as if there were a dedicated bus lane on each of these avenues, and there isn't. The buses operate in the traffic lanes the same as any other vehicles do.
Okay. And I had another question. So all these restaurants that right now are receiving these cease and desist orders, if this resolution does get passed, does this apply only to them, or like, I guess anybody, any new restaurant can also put up these structures now, right? Anyone can. Okay.
I assume the self-certification process is still open. Can Colleen comment on that?
Yes, it is still open, but if we're issuing cease and desist to these particular restaurants along the corridor, based on the rush hour regulations, we're not going to permit them to build structures in that area.
So we're going with Mark's wording?
I think that says it, what we want to say.
Yep.
Can we call the question?
Sure can. All those in favor?
Don't you call on people who have their hands up that want
I'm
to
sorry.
comment on it? Barbara has
Jay
her
and
hand
Barbara's
up.
hands
I
are
have
up.
my hand up.
No, I was voting actually.
Oh, okay. Jay?
I just have a quick observation. The agenda item says, discuss the feasibility of restaurant street seating on the west side of Columbus Avenue. It says nothing about the rush hour lanes or the restaurants having to move it. It's totally non-informative. I know until this discussion, I had no idea that
It really should have said, discuss the threat.
Once again, I object to it.
It wasn't the best description of the issue. You're right, Jay, but I don't know that.
No, it doesn't seem to matter at all in terms of what we concocting resolutions as we go by the seat of our pants on this committee. I mean, if you have an issue and it's very specific involving the designation of rush hour, what the restaurants have to do, the fact that they've been getting cease and desist, none of that is explained in any sense in this agenda item. All it says is the feasibility of restaurant seating, period. And I object to that. And I think that it's incumbent upon the committee, if they have a specific issue with specific facts, to summarize them in a way that puts committee members, non-committee board members, and the public on notice as to what's going to be discussed. That's my comment.
I don't know where that wording came from, to be honest. I saw it there myself for the first time. I don't know who raised it.
Seems to
It
be
should
a
have
lot
said,
of mystery about where these things come from.
There's no mystery. This was something that Ken raised. In any event, point well taken. The wording could definitely be better, unequivocally. We could all agree on it. We don't have to discuss it. I agree. Call the question. Yeah.
Let's do that.
All in favor? Electronic hands, please. I have 7 committee members in favor. Anyone on the committee opposed? Please lower your electronic hands. Anyone on the committee opposed? Doug, are you voting opposed? Okay, anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining on the committee? 2, okay, 7-0 to 2, Barbara. We'll have the non-committee members vote, all the non-committee members in favor of this resolution. 3 in favor. Anyone not on the committee, either opposed or abstaining? No. Okay, the resolution passes. Again, there is an ideal way to do this, and sometimes we fall short. We'll try to get the wording as descriptive as possible in the future. What's next? Are we up to old and new
Old
business?
business or new business?
Any old business?
Well, I just wanted to speak to what just happened, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah.
To allay Jay's concern, and I am often critical of how things are done on this board and on this committee. It was my recollection, and I brought up the issue in new business at our last meeting. We talked specifically about the west side of Columbus Avenue. We had conversations. In fact, Colleen responded to us respectfully, and so we did discuss that there would be a resolution. Now, I understand it wasn't noticed, and so if the wording was not correct, but we did talk about this very issue about the cease and desist letters and stuff. So, that the wording, I guess, on the agenda was not clear, but we did.
Well, I happened to be out of town for the last meeting, and I wasn't at the last meeting, so I had no notice that this was the issue, and there's a reason why it should be specific.
Agreed. The more specificity, the better. I don't think anyone could argue with that. Any other new or old business? Well,
thank you all.
Thanks. Thank you all. See you all next week.
Have a good night.